All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. Happy Super Bowl Monday. Go Birds. First thing we'll do is roll call. So Rich Smith present. And I'm the only one, so are people on Zoom?
Sean Sullivan present.
Phyllis Goodson present.
Andrea Bennett. Andrea Bennett present.
PJ Klein present.
Perfect. Move on to approval of the January minutes. Do we have any discussion of January minutes or any of the revisions? Not hearing any. Okay, January minutes are approved. Move to item number 1, updates and discussion, and we'll pass that over to David.
I will kick us off on this one. And anyway, it's as y'all recall, we had a briefing from Tara Spencer in regard to the 2025 state and federal agenda, and just kind of the process for that, as well as we provided some input back to her in regard to, things that we felt that were of interest to this committee, as well as could be presented back to the city leadership for getting on the 20 and 25 agenda. And that was at our December or January meeting?
No,
December. Since that time, there have certainly been some changes on the particular federal level, which have certainly impacted I would say, climate that, no pun intended, that we're all working on.
It's a good one though.
Yes. So the process that she goes through to get the final agenda that it's presented to city council, she gathers, information and input, from, groups like us, as well as from things like the Chamber of Commerce and the North Carolina Metro Mayors Group, as well as New Hanover County, just all things that could be of importance to the city of Wilmington. And she compiles all of that input and then kind of has private discussions with each of the city council members for their review and input. And the way the final list gets on the agenda is she has to have 100% unanimous agreement from all of the council members on each of the items. So I would say some of the input that we provided did not make it onto the final document this year.
Because of that.
Because of that kind of unanimous agreement aspect of what makes this final list. And I mean, the resolution that's I've attached to the agenda is the one that was presented and made it through to, and it was presented to city council on the 21st of January. I think we're going forward, not only for items like this, but just kind of I would say the current climate of things that are happening at the state and federal level are going to be challenging. As probably all of you been seeing headlines for, frozen thing, grants that are frozen and funding that's frozen, and it's going to be an interesting number of years. So I don't know, Dave, do you have anything to add to that, the process?
No, we just wanted to make sure that brought it back to y'all so y'all can see. First of all, make sure that that the recommendations that were provided by this group were included as part of the process. Unfortunately, the results didn't yield what we would have hoped, but it wasn't for the lack of effort on Kara's part to attempt. But political climate just isn't there right now to garner that 100% support, at least to get on the legislative agenda. So happy to answer any questions you guys might have about that process, but wanted to make sure we got the word back to y'all.
Any questions, from our friends on Zoom?
Yeah.
I have a question. I think I had posed it to Kara at the time. And I don't know that we knew enough at that point. I don't know if we know enough now. But my question was around refining strategy and if there is any guidance from Kara or just in general navigating this climate, like the work and the charter that we have set forth for us is still the same. In terms of like, you know, what success looks like. And so I'm just wondering if there is any guidance from her on refining the strategy to ensure that we are still able to move forward and make progress.
That's a very good point. Let us have some discussions with Kara and possibly even see if she can come back, participate in another meeting on a future date. And that we can discuss that as a group. Happy to do that, Andrea. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, not hearing anything. Move on to the next piece. The C piece.
Yeah, the next piece, we thought we'd tear off that bad news Band-Aid right off the bat. Get it in front of y'all. On a brighter note, the CPACE resolution of intent we presented last week to City Council and passed with unanimously. So that was the first step in the three-part process. Also, I'll say that the county also passed their resolution of intent last Monday. So we're both proceeding along in good timing with getting this CPACE fully adopted. So the second step is a public hearing, as well as formally adopting the CPACE program. So that'll be the third step. So we have both of those steps scheduled for the first meeting in March, which is the 3rd or 4th of March, 4th, I believe. And I believe the county right now is shooting for their second meeting in February to do those steps. So the CPACE program continues to
Move through the pipeline.
Yeah, move along quite well. So all been very positive and good support around that program. So very, very pleased to see that. Any questions from y'all or additional info I can provide on that?
Doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
Greenhouse gas emissions report.
So we also presented to City Council at their agenda briefing the greenhouse gas emissions report for this year. I think I briefed y'all about this previously, but just want to let you know that we presented it to City Council as well. Obviously, there was a pretty significant bump up this year, as mentioned previously, just mostly from the addition of this facility, the Skyline Center. It's quite a big bump in electricity usage, while also having, a number of the surplus properties still on our books as well. So we certainly anticipate those numbers to go down, and while greenhouse gas emissions are slightly outside the purview of this group. It's certainly related just from a energy usage and energy efficiency point of view, which is certainly one of our areas that we focus on quite a bit. So.
So. Are you, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was curious, what happened in 2022 that increased the like street lights and traffic signals?
Good
carbon
question.
emission?
Very good.
So that was the first year, I think it was the first year that we had information that Duke Energy provided to
Oh, the
us
breakdown.
that told us for this type of light, here's the
Sure.
monthly average of kilowatts that you could consume. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
it wasn't anything that dramatically changed. It
Operationally
was,
changed just the
it
information.
was just information.
That was the first year they provided that estimated streetlight usage.
And just, there was a pretty good amount of interest expressed during the presentation about streetlights and area lights. So David is compiling some information to go back to my boss and then to city council about what that interest was. So it was, we're in the process of providing that, but there was interest about that, so.
Can you share with us what kind of interest there was? Like,
They wanted, there was interest in, ownership of the asset, who owns the light. So, most of our street lights are owned by Duke. Most of area lights are owned by us. There are exceptions in both directions.
Stadium lights.
Stadium lights, which is an area that we have a lot of opportunity to make changes, but there's big capital costs that go
Right.
with that. And then there's an understanding of cost, how much do we pay for this type of metal halide light versus this type of
LED.
LED light. So along with the energy consumed by both. So we're trying to compile all that information and get it back to
Sure.
Deputy City Manager.
One, just on that specific topic, one pro tip I have is I know there's a lot of added savings for stadium lighting. When you factor in the labor cost. Because usually you'll have to get like a cherry picker or some kind of specialty equipment to switch out the stadium lights. And so if you have an LED that, lasts whatever, you go off the average, like 20 years or whatever, versus like a metal halide that'll last you 3 or 4, you save a significant amount of labor and equipment costs on that.
Right.
So that can help justify it as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else on the greenhouse gas report, I think. I didn't, I do have hard copies for everyone, so,
Next meeting.
yeah, next meeting, so. Whoever's here live is certainly welcome to a copy, or I can get them to y'all from different means, but yeah, definitely, certainly want you guys to have copies of that just for your record. Yeah, I guess we'll just continue to move on with the updates here. Our fleet EV transition vendor. Also on the first council meeting in March, we have the appropriation of the EECBG funds, as well as a resolution for a contract for that study to a group called ICF, who we've selected to do the fleet EV study. So the one caveat with that is, as I mentioned, the current climate. Right now, we're not quite sure what the status of our EECBG funds are. I've reached out to our Department of Energy contact in regard to, can we go ahead and appropriate these funds that are in our next meeting? So I'm waiting to hear back about that.
Probably waiting for him to find out.
Yeah. It's too much stuff up in the air right now, so definitely a little bit frustrating, particularly as we're ready to move forward with getting this fleet EV strategy kicked off, so. I don't know if anybody else is is dealing with this, but did any of the work y'all do?
I guess my question would be, or thought would be like, should we start working on a plan B of ways to request or justify allocating those funds from somewhere else if we're not getting them from the EDCBG? Um, you know, has David already spent his budget for the year? Can we make the argument that it's the return on investment that they should allocate funds from somewhere else to this? Simply because this process takes so long. I mean, we're in like year 2 of, or year 3 of trying to get this done. That I feel like being reactive to it, like if we wait to find out we're not gonna get that money, just puts us that much further behind the ball.
So so first of all, we held an online interview, a virtual interview with the company. Um, I was, I can't remember how many projects that they've done, but they've done similar things for multiple other municipalities.
Yeah.
So feel pretty good that our internal committee, I think maybe with one exception, we all thought that they were the firm to select.
Sure.
So I think we had a good process. We ended up with a good result.
Yeah.
Our approach right now is to follow the schedule that we intended to until we can't.
Mhm.
So as it stands right now, we will be there at March 4th.
Okay.
To get the grant funding appropriated and this contract approved. If we don't know at that time, then we will follow the advice of our legal department and our financial department to say, if not, then when? And we will stay directly in touch with the firm, the company, to make sure they're still following along with us, because I know they don't want to lose the work. At the same time, we'll have to start looking under couch cushions and other places for that funding. But we're going to keep on that track, the track that we established a long time ago, until somebody tells us that EECBG funds are no longer, and we can't use those, at which point we'll have to do something different. But we're going to keep on until
Can't keep on.
we can't keep on with that source of funding. So your point is very well taken, and it's not going unnoticed. So we'll have to do that probably eventually.
One thing I'd be curious to gauge ICF's interest in is, or like their willingness to, I'd be curious to see if they have a projected increase, like a projected cost increase by not performing the work now. I know like a lot of HVAC companies, will tell you, hey, this quote's good for 3 months, but in 6 months and a year from now, we expect, a 15% increase in material costs or whatever. So that way, if it's a quick question to them, and if the funds are not available, and then city council has to make that decision whether to try and find it from somewhere else or to, shelve it, they have an understanding of what the additional cost of shelving it will be.
Yep. Easy enough.
I think they've got something written into their proposal. So we can take a look and double check on that one.
Sounds good.
Yeah, certainly fingers crossed that the funding will still flow. You know, it's certainly money that's already been allocated by Congress, so. But, yeah.
Any other questions about that? Okay.
Skyline Center Energy Study was, we finally received a report back from Terracon. There were a few questions about the report and some additional information that they would like to, I'd say, this is our Assistant City Manager, Chad McEwen, and the Skyline Center Facility Manager, who would like to see some additional information within the report. So we had a phone call with Terracon last week, and I think they're going to revise the study and provide some additional level of detail, particularly in regard to the lighting systems and the ROI for what they calculated.
Can that be shared?
I think once we get the final report, yes, I'm sure they would not have a problem sharing it with this group. So
My follow-up to that is there interest in having this committee review those recommendations before appropriating funds for them?
well, one way we are looking at appropriating funds to help fund some of that work was with that additional EECG grant that I submitted to the State Energy Office. So,
Also TBD.
yeah.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. You know, obviously, low hanging fruit on there is the lighting here in this facility, but I think there was some additional. I think the report was looking at just replacing bulbs as opposed to replacing whole fixtures, which these are 18-year-old fixtures. And, right now I think they're replacing as many fixtures that are failing as opposed to, just replacing bulbs. So,
Well, and there are arguments to be made for deballasting
mm,
as well. And there's a incremental savings by replacing the fixture with one that doesn't require a ballast.
mhm.
So I would be, I guess my recommendation would be to see if you can do some quick math on that to just give them if we replace these fixtures, there's an additional X to be saved here versus, or push that onto Terracon and say,
That's-
we'd like to know how much it would cost to replace the fixtures with ones that don't require
That-
ballast.
That's
Okay.
one thing they've already pushed back
Okay.
on. Yeah. As well as some additional lighting controls. They didn't really get into.
Okay.
I think there are some lighting controls in here, but it's,
Rudimentary.
yeah, and as particularly on some of the tenant floors, which are, multiple tenants on one floor,
Right.
they want to be able to zone things off much more.
Yeah, the lighting controls are by floor, not by,
Tenant or a space, yeah.
right.
So, that meeting was just last week with Terracon. They're gonna do some revisions to the report, provide some additional financial information on there. Once we get that final report in, I'll certainly check with Chad and make sure that we can share that. Yeah, I think y'all would be beneficial to put eyes on it.
Sure.
Perhaps.
Yeah. Agreed.
Well, this could potentially be a speedy meeting here today. Was really one just for updates. I don't think we had any major items that we wanted to bring in front of y'all this month for any voting. We have, I guess, one thing not on the agenda, we have for this, our strategic plan work groups within the city that are working on that. FY25 to FY30, we've begun to break out into our various objective teams. I know I had a meeting last week. That input that y'all have provided there will certainly be brought back as in last week's meetings were really just kind of introductory, kind of get the process rolling. But certainly plan to bring those ideas back in front of our various work groups. Did you have, oh, you're on one of the core teams, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
not, it's all internal, that was not.
Yeah. So. Happy to open the floor to any additional discussion y'all want to chat about, or any additional info that we can provide on anything.
You bring up an interesting topic. How to borrow Dave's term, like keep on keeping on with the current upheaval. I don't know that I even necessarily have a thought or a question tied to that, just a observation that yeah, I don't know. I mean, do you, I guess my question is, do you as city staff foresee any, well, how can you know? I don't know. I've got nothing. Never mind. That was a half-formed thought. I guess, yeah, is there any operational or directional changes that you foresee happening? But like, I also don't know how you could foresee anything at the moment. But
There's a lot of uncertainty.
yeah,
The budget process this year has changed more dramatically than it has probably for the past 8 years.
mhm,
To be on top of the other changes that are going
Yeah.
on. I'm not sure if this gets at what you're saying, but I think it does get at some of that, and that is, despite the results that may end up in a positive direction for the goals of this committee or the goals for greenhouse gas emissions, we need to make a financial case for that. And I think if we make the financial case for that, then the likelihood of it getting
yeah,
progressed or moved forward is much higher than if we say, well, it's just for meeting this goal. But if
do it for the trees.
if we do it to save money
Right.
for the long term,
Yeah.
and we achieve the goal, then we're actually achieving the goal pretty well.
Yeah.
So as much as we can, try to at least acknowledge that and focus on the fiscal part of it. Is my hope, my thought anyway.
Sure, yeah. Green is not, dollars are not red or blue, they're green.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's going to be key going forward, is focusing on those cost conservative aspects of it.
Sure. Thoughts or feedback from the rest of the room?
I think that lines up with what I was asking earlier, and I think that we've always kept it in mind, but I think refining strategy to keep it really front and center and be mindful about return on investment and cost savings and all of those things, like you said, strengthens everything. I just want to check in on y'all. David and Dave, are you guys doing okay? You guys hanging in? It's such a time of crazy uncertainty. Are y'all doing okay?
Pause.
Andrea, I've never had anybody ask me that. So appreciate that. No,
Well, that points to a flaw in the system right there.
no, yeah, it's different times. I think we're fine. It's just trying to deal with and manage those unknowns is, it's a bit unsettling. Although I would say that the degree to which we're managing that, having to manage that doesn't compare to the people that are managing it at the federal level. But anyway, thanks for your concern. Appreciate that.
For sure.
Yeah, the people on the front lines up in DC who are, possibly losing jobs and having their lives flipped upside down. Yeah, gosh, I certainly still know some people up in DC who are in that boat. So compared to them, yeah, I'm doing great. But yeah, just, it's just the hard work that, we're all doing, and to kind of have to, I hope we're not having to pump the brakes too much, but just the uncertainty. Yeah, that's frustrating.
Yeah, it seems like energy efficiency is looking even more like a good road to go down as far as cost savings and reaching some of our goals.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think very much tailoring words and focusing on that in things we push forward, or it's going to be even more key here in these next few years. Cost savings and energy efficiency.
So I guess that's a good philosophical question that I have for the group is, and we've kind of, I don't remember if it was behind closed doors or in public session, we've kind of had this conversation in the past where, if we're curing cancer, it doesn't matter how we're curing cancer, how, does the messaging matter, for you guys, how do you feel about, okay, if we end up getting clean energy by focusing on dollars, are we fine doing that versus getting clean energy because we're saying it's the right thing to do? And we shouldn't have to focus on just the dollars to just do the right thing, what are the committee's feelings on that,
My internet was just a little bit unstable, so I apologize that I missed the first half, but I think I gathered from the second half what you were saying. And as someone who was a high school educator for a few years, the mantra that I learned when I was taking my courses for education was survive and subvert. And I think that in this moment, I think what moves the work forward is what we should continue to focus on. So if, cost savings and bottom lines and energy efficiency gets us there, I think, let's refine our focus and make sure that our communication out to the stakeholders that we need remains effective. I think that's what you were asking, but like I said, I kind of froze for a second, so I'm sorry. Okay.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Anyone else have feedback? Sean just gives us a grimace and a shrug.
Sure. I mean, yeah, by any means necessary. No.
And I mean, I don't feel strong, I don't necessarily feel strongly one way or another, I just kind of wanted to get more the take of a committee since we move as one. For these kind of things.
Good question.
Yeah. Sure. I think, I mean, if no one has anything else to discuss, we can go ahead and end it there. I think there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of wait and see that we're kind of in the mode for right now, and you know, being the loud one rocking the boat right now is probably not the best place to be, so we kind of just have to sit and see how things settle a little bit before we can continue to push in one direction or another. But yeah, I would encourage, I guess, I would encourage a renewed focus from city staff on things that we can do proactively from the cost saving side, you know, that we can. If we're gonna do a shakeup, you know, shakeups are usually good times to ask for what you need. And if we can do it in a way that makes sense to the new prevailing winds, then it's a good opportunity to possibly secure more funding or to get the things done that we want to get done. We can do it in a way that makes sense for the new administration. So yeah.
Yeah, I should have some more information by the time we meet next, so stay tuned.
All right.
Annual report.
Yeah, working on getting the report finalized and shooting for presenting that at
March.
the March,
Okay.
first meeting in March, so,
March 4th or the.
yeah. So,
Unless there's an overload of stuff.
Sure.
It'd be March 4th.
and certainly circulate that to everyone as we get the draft finalized for any input.
Sounds good. All right, if no one has anything else, we can adjourn and say we'll see you next month.
Yep.
Thank
Thanks.
y'all.
Good one,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Y'all.